All right. So I think in broad strokes, a lot of people feel like the internet could be better. But I think that a lot of people don't really understand the underlying problem. And we think that using the blockchain and domain infrastructure gives us a really interesting wedge to solve some of the major problems on the internet. So I always love this little slide here because no one knows if you're a dog on the internet. And that's because the internet doesn't have a native identity layer. And this causes all sorts of problems for end users. And one of them is you have a different login for hundreds of websites. I know a lot of people use LastPass or password managers or whatnot, but every single place that you visit has a different representation of you online. And first of all, that's dangerous from a security perspective, right? Not having a persistent identifier across all these places that can be aggregated makes it a lot harder to monitor if maybe you've been hacked in one of these places. You just don't know. Also, your data is separately stored across all these different applications, and it's hard to monitor if someone has potentially accessed it in a way that could be used against you in the future. Additionally, because there's not a persistent you across the internet, well, if you're a scammer and you get caught scamming on one place, you can just go to another. And we see this all the time as different organizations will move from one marketplace to another or create another identity on the same marketplace to run the same frauds again and again. And then finally, this is new, right? But things just keep getting worse for the internet, right? Is that AI-generated things are getting really impressively good. Everything from images to video to phone calls. And you're going to have some way to verify what's true and what's not. And one of the things that we identified early, and we think is only becoming more true with time, is that using blockchains in order to verify things is a really smart use of crypto, and one that we think has real utility for the real world. Okay, so I'm telling you that what we need is some sort of persistent reputation across the internet. And in a second, I'll tell you why I think it's domains. But I think, importantly, we need to talk about what doesn't work. And filtering, which big companies do. Facebook filters millions of inappropriate messages every day, if not billions, I don't even know. And same thing with Google and all these other places. Well, the problem with filtering is, creating another profile is super cheap, right? So people are going to get through your filters. One user can now create millions of profiles with bots, right? And using AI, it's even easier to pretend that you're a human. So it's just becoming harder and harder and harder and harder and harder to filter. And the solution to this is some sort of emergent identity to build up over time. And we can see this because there's actually other industries that have experienced the filtering problem. Credit scores I have up here is a really good one. Can you imagine how we extended credit before we had credit profiles? And what are credit profiles really doing for consumers? Is they're giving you a reputation around your finances that you can take from one business to another business to another business, and that allows them to do lending more easily. And that opened up an entire consumer credit market in the United States, really helps business happen, right? We think the same thing is going to happen with reputation on the internet. And I guess a note here is that filtering also can turn into censorship at the edges, and platforms are struggling with this in a way that's not super healthy. And I honestly think, and some people might not like me saying this, but I think the platforms are trying really hard to thread the needle of filtering and not crossing into censorship, but I think it's just too hard. So what if I told you that everyone on the internet's going to have a domain? You see that influencers already do this. But if everyone had a domain, then what you have is a persistent portable identity that you can use with you across the internet. And this addresses a lot of the problems that we have about login fatigue with all different types of logins. There's already infrastructure for this. Domain names are used, right? When you load a website, you feel confident you're in the right place because the domain name infrastructure has spent the last 30 years doing a real good job of helping you resolve to the correct resource. And then, this is pretty important, you build up these profiles that are so much harder for AI and bots and scammers to fake. Because if you have an enriched profile of your reputation across the internet, now the bot doesn't have to just fake your account on one place. They have to fake it across dozens and eventually hundreds of places. And that makes the cost of creating a fake profile, instead of being a few cents or maybe less than a cent, the cost is going to be $50, $100, $200, right? And that is going to stop the fraud and scams we see online. So this is a little bit of technical about how it works. And I would just say that the real trick here is putting private public key pairs in users' wallets. In users' pockets. And this is what crypto has done and why it's such a huge opportunity. We already have 500 million people or whatever with crypto wallet, right? And every time you have a crypto wallet, you have a private public key pair, which you can potentially use to sign things. And that can help you verify your identity. So we think that's exactly where we're going. And by tying into the existing domain infrastructure, you could use mattgould.com, tying that back to your crypto wallet addresses, using those private public key pairs to sign things, extending the DNS infrastructure with blockchain records. You're going to have a consistent profile across the internet that will even have the additional benefit of financial services that you can build a reputation around, and will help not only you borrow money, do whatever else it is you need to do online, but help apps be able to distinguish between real users and potential frauds or scam online. So we think that a bunch of additional businesses will also emerge, just like when you had credit scores, all of a sudden we have all this new things that you can do in consumer credit. Well, the same thing's going to happen around reputation data and identity online. And it's hard to predict what the future's going to bring, but we think that you'll see verifications, payments, and digital finance to consumers globally, and hopefully bring hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars of value to users. Okay.